What's up, everybody? Dr. Josh here, clinical psychologist, natural bodybuilder, DBZ enthusiast, and today I wanted to talk to you all about how I optimize bodybuilding training from home. Now, there are some unique things that you can do with volume, frequency, and intensity to help sort of optimize your training from home when you don't have as much equipment as a gym, and there are a few other things that I like to do to make my training more effective. So, if you're interested in that or anything bodybuilding and psychology related, hit subscribe. Let's get to the episode. The first part of optimization is starting with what you need. So I think a lot of people transition to a home setup or decide they want to start training from home because maybe the gym becomes too inconvenient. So starting with a small footprint or buying only the pieces of equipment that you're going to need to get effective training in is the first recommendation here. Starting with dumbbells, starting with a pull-up bar, starting with barbells or a barbell and some weights is going to be a cost-effective and good way to see if home training is even the thing for you. Your space and your money are better spent on consistency. Get consistent first. And then once you have those tools, then you're going to want to train smart with them. So part of training smarter is selecting appropriate rep ranges. So if you only have dumbbells, bands, or things like that to train your arms and chest with, you are going to want to select rep ranges that allows you to get an appropriate stimulus for your muscle. Now, what's an appropriate stimulus? An appropriate stimulus is anything within the 5 to 30 rep range, could be lower, could be more, but that's just a general rule of thumb. And selecting that rep range within a close proximity of failure is going to be one of the better things that you can do to get an appropriate stimulus. What's a close proximity of failure? Anything from 3 to 0 reps in reserve. At 0 reps in reserve, I couldn't do any more reps. At 3 reps in reserve, I could do about 3 more reps. So selecting or biasing our training towards the higher end rep range when we have a small footprint is probably what you're going to need to do to get an appropriate stimulus for your muscle because you're not able to load up the bar with as heavy a weight. If you can, explore the 5 to 10 rep range. If you can get to a close proximity to failure, explore the 10 to 20, and then explore the 20 to 30 rep range. I think we all know that once you get far along enough in your training, 10, 15 push-ups ain't gonna cut it. You're gonna have to explore even further and maybe even load up your push-ups. But if you can take the weights that you have and utilize the 20 to 30 rep range, feel like that's a rep range that a lot of people don't explore. And to continue on, if your equipment is limited, let's say you only have a set of dumbbells, maybe some barbells, you're going to have to get a little bit creative with the variations you select. Feet elevated push-ups, couch split squats, kitchen counter dips. You're going to have to get creative with the variations that you use whenever you're training from home. Part of training from home is going to be you trying to find a way to put your muscles into disadvantageous positions so that you can create that appropriate stimulus that we talked about. Now, I'm not talking about unsafe or compromised positions, but you're going to have to get creative with ways to allow gravity to do a lot of the work for you since you don't have all the fancy gym equipment. So think about ways you can modify exercises with the things you have in your environment at home. Now, I realize this is a bench, but I have done split squats on my couch before, and it has been a very effective way for me to train. Now, you have to get creative, but creativity only goes so far, so you're going to have to figure out a way to turn up the intensity. Drop sets, myo reps, lengthen partials, all things that should be considered as ways to increase the intensity during your workouts. Part of using something like myo reps is to get a stimulus to your muscle that doesn't require more weight. So by not necessarily emphasizing intensity techniques, but by using them strategically during your workouts or during your mesocycles, towards the ends of your mesocycles, allows you to increase the intensity and thereby get a better stimulus to your muscle. So consider, if you don't have that many weights, if you have only dumbbells that go up to 25, consider things like myo reps so that you can have multiple approaches to failure and thereby get a little bit more muscle growth. But even with all this, even with all the intensity techniques, your weights are probably going to run out eventually. However, you still have some options. So I highly recommend leaning into single limb training. Now, this is going to be a bit of a time suck, but your larger muscle groups, your chest, your back, your legs especially, let's focus on legs here, it's going to require a bit more of a stimulus, and you can load up individual legs with a bit more weight if you're training from home by using single leg training, utilizing things like, single arm pull downs, Bulgarian split squats, B stance RDLs. These things are going to be your best friends so that you can get an appropriate stimulus and a heavier stimulus to individual muscles. And that's one of the trade-offs to at-home training. You may have to spend a bit more time training to get as much of a stimulus as you would have at the gym. So with that sort of time constraint in mind, or the need to invest more time, you may have to double down on volume and frequency as another way to increase the stimulus. Now, there are multiple ways to progress your exercises, and one of those ways is load. But if you're training from home, you may not have all the weights in the gym. So look at individual volumes per body part, per workout, and then also look at the frequency with which you are training a body part throughout the week. So let's just say you are hitting chest a couple of times a week and you've already hit, 6 to 8 sets in individual workouts. You may want to look at training chest 3 days a week so that you can increase the frequency and increase the overall volumes. And this doesn't necessarily mean you're going to need more weight. You are just increasing the volumes. And we know that current research points to 10 to 20 sets per body part per week is going to allow you to optimize hypertrophy. Now, can you make gains outside of those rep ranges? 100%. But if you're at home and you're looking to optimize and you haven't explored the higher frequencies or higher volumes throughout the week, then this is something that you need to consider. Consider increasing your individual volumes per workout, and then also consider increasing the frequency with which you train throughout the week. Trade-off here is you may have to back off some other muscles. Let's face it, a lot of people back off calves, some other things like that, but you may have to dial down, let's say, your overall leg training to fit in the frequency with which you need to optimize the stimulus for, let's say, something like chest or back, and to recover from that. So increasing the frequency isn't a panacea. You're going to have to dial back the volumes on some other things. And let's face it, none of these things matter unless you are recovering appropriately. Prioritizing sleep and nutrition. So this is sort of a half a tip that I have for you all that I think you know, but I just want to point out that by not commuting to the gym and not having to fight the gym crowd, you are more in control of your sleep and your food than ever. Now, this could give you more opportunities to go off the rails, but I think it is a useful trade-off to keep in mind, because if you think about what the commute is to the gym, sometimes people drive 30 minutes to the gym and 30 minutes back, and that's an hour. That is an hour you could have used to be sleeping more and recovering better. That hour is an hour that you now can use for meal prep or things that get you further along in your fitness journey. So eat for your goals, prep your meals, check out the episodes on the channel that have to do with meal prep, and adjust your sleep schedule so that you are getting in a bit more sleep and you can be a bit more consistent with sleep, so that now that you've optimized your at-home training, you can actually take full advantage and be recovering from your workouts. Folks, training from home isn't a downgrade. It's an opportunity to explore training variables that maybe you hadn't considered, and then to also optimize other variables that you wouldn't have gotten to if you had to travel to and from the gym. And if any of that was helpful, hit subscribe, leave me a comment, and I will see you in the next episode for something bodybuilding or bodybuilding psychology related. See you there.